Okay, hi everyone. Good afternoon. This is Meisam Slahi. I'm a Global Technical Director with the Council Global Services. First of all, I would like to say thanks to all of you to spend your lovely afternoon with us today. And today we are going to talk about the importance of the threat hunting and how we can find the hunts in the memory. Before I start, let's introduce a little bit about introduce myself a little bit. I'm with the EGS, which is a global sector of the EC Council for the advisory and consultancy. I'm a technical director in charge of the VAPT, vulnerability assessment, penetration testing, digital forensic, incident response, red teaming, and all the professional services in the cyber security. So let's go hunting. We start with the why hunting is important and why is memory, because we will discuss about a different source of data and information that can be used during the threat hunting to look for any evidence of malicious activities. However, today's webinar, we are only focused on the memory forensics and how we can find the malicious activities or malicious processes or any other pattern in the memory. So we have a brief discussion on the memory acquisition and with a brief introduction about volatility framework. However, in our face-to-face training, we will have more in-depth information and more discussion about the memory acquisition techniques and the memory analysis frameworks. And at the end, we go in action and we do a practical memory analysis, and together we look for a malicious pattern. So why hunting and why memory? So threat hunting is a term that at the moment we can hear it everywhere. It's one of the very hot topics. In short, a threat hunting is a proactive and iterative method to look for any malicious activities in our digital environment. So it's very important to understand it's proactive, means we are not only rely on the tools that set up the tools, feed them with the data and waiting for the alert to pop up. We proactively go and look for the threats in our environment. In order to do that, we should understand our environment, what we have in the place, what is our network situation, what would be a common entry for the attackers, which will be discussed in the few coming slides. And then we come with the hypothesis, and based on that hypothesis, we look for the threats. So when we talk about the threat hunting, we normally deal with the two bad things. One is a known bad, and one is an unknown bad. So, of course, the traditional way of detecting the threats and the malwares is to correlate signatures, so which is a predefined pattern of the malicious activities. So they are well known. Some researchers or some vendor all around the world analyze those threats, or malware, or those bad actors and generate a specific pattern for us, which make life easy for us. We can just match whatever we found in our data and correlate with those signatures to find if they are matched. In case they are matched, we call them as a known bad. So in the threat hunting, we're dealing with the indicator of the compromise or indicator of the attacks, IOC and IOA, to look for the known bats. Indicator of compromise simply is any signature of compromisation in a system. It's in the latest stage of the attacks when unfortunately the attack has been conducted successfully and the attacker may gain access to our environment, and there is some footprints there, and we look for those footprints. On the other hand, the indicator of the attacks, or IOA, try to detect the threats in the early stages. Like, for example, the scanning. Scanning is one of the early stages of the any attacks. For example, as internal attacks, we use the Nmap or whatever tools to just go for all the range of the IP to look for the live system, and then we may use just vulnerability scanner or live system discovery to find this the group of the targets. So these are, we call it indicator of the attacks. But the more challenging issues raised when we dealing with the unknown bats. Because for the known bats, we know what is the indicator of compromisation, what is the indicator of the attack. We just specifically look for them. But there are a huge amount of the attack which consider unknown. There could be 0-day, or they could be a sophisticated attack in case the attacker use many different technique and technology to bypass our security solution and to hide their malicious activities. So to detect the unknown bats, we need more analytical skills to analyze the attacker tactics, techniques, and procedure. Normally, we may conduct the behavioral analysis, anomaly-based detection, and so on. It's so important that nowadays it's not easy to deal with the new generation of the attacks. I remember back to 2000, if I didn't mistake, 8, yes, when I started my research career, that time I was focusing on the botnets, and I was witness that how the bot and botnets are evolving day to day. So one of the latest generation at that time, I'm pretty sure they more evolve at the moment. They start using the port 80 to hide their activity amongst the normal network traffic. They also start to move their CMC controls to the social medias, so to act exactly like a normal user. So the port 80 is most of the time is open, if I don't want to say all of the time, and is just the HTTP or HTTPS encrypted, and the command and control server is just on the very famous social medias. So as a tools point of view, it could be a normal user checking the social media, but in fact is a botnet who communicates with his bot master. So this is where we call them unknown bad. There may be no signature for them because they are technically a 0-day. By 0-day, as all of you may know, I refer to the malware or technique just recently released, and no one may aware of that, and therefore there will be no signature to detect it. So in today's practical session, we try to more focus on the unknown bad rather than the known bats. Why is it important? I'm pretty sure when you open the Google and search about cybersecurity, the threat hunting is one of the results in the search because it's on demand, and everyone talk about the threat hunting. Let's go hunting. Let's catch the threats. But why it's important? The first and the most important thing is that is a proactive approach. Again and again, I emphasize the fact that it's proactive. Because when we talk about the threat hunting, a lot of people think that, okay, I have a tools, I have my SIEM there, I get my data log pushed to my SIEM, and then I wait for the alert. This is not a proactive threat hunting. Threat hunting is a combination of the man and the tools. We still need an expert in our organization, or we can hire the third parties like us to come and do the threat hunting for you. So another good thing about the threat hunting, just like any other service line in the cybersecurity, is iterative. It's not a one-time process. It must be conducted as a process in the different iteration. The reason why: technology change, a new update release, the risk factors may be changed the time to time, the new attack techniques may discover, the new vulnerability. So I do the threat hunting this morning, but who knows, tomorrow we may be vulnerable again. That's why it should be considered as a process. Just like a digital forensics, a threat hunting helps us to identify the unknown breaches, but it's specifically depends on the expertise that you have within your team. The threat hunters, are they familiar with the anomaly detection, the behavior analysis? Are they intelligent enough to find the patterns? And these are the factors that help you to know that whether you are how strong you are in identifying the unknown breaches. So as the threat hunting is a proactive, it helps us to detect the malicious activities in very early stages. It's very important because the earlier we detect, the less may be the effect of the attack. So that's why in the cybersecurity, we always say there is no 100% security, there is no 100% prevention. The attack may happen. It's just a matter of the time. When the attack is happen, the earlier we detect, it helps us for the rapid response at first place, and also to mitigate the impact on our businesses. And of course, minimize the cyber dwell time. By the dwell time in the cybersecurity, it's referred to the infection to detection to eradication. Means the time that we get infected, the gap between the time that we infected and we detect the threat and successfully eradicate it. So the threat hunting can help us to minimize the time between infection, detection, and eradication. And of course, if proactively we look for the evidences, it helps the investigation team to reduce the time. There are more and more threat hunting benefits and advantages. So, but on the top of that, of course, they help us to reduce the risk and the damage to our organization, to our employees, to other assets, to other business, and to our reputation. Okay. The Albert Hubbard is one of the guy that I'm really in love with one of his quotes. He believes that one machine can do the work of 50 ordinary men, but no machine can do the work of one extraordinary man. Again, and again, I want to highlight the important matter that threat hunting is not a choice between the man or a tool. It's a man with the help of the tool, technique, and technology. Again, if you have that mindset that I have a tools for my threat hunting, I set up in my environment, I feed a data, and by data, I mean logs, because when we talk about the threat hunting, everyone at first place think about a log. So I feed with the logs, okay, here we go, we are good. I just wait for the alert. It's good. You are waiting for the alert, but alert generated from known bad. No unknown bad trigger the alerts unless you do a manual checkup to analyze the patterns. So I don't want to say that those reactive solutions are not good. No, they complement each other. We need all the solutions in place. In fact, the threat hunting works in the area that your monitoring solutions are not covering, and look for the activities that have not been detected. This is a very important area when we talk about the threat hunting. So we talk about the malicious activities, we talk about suspicious activities, and the main question is where to look. In the left side, I draw a very generic diagram of the network in any organizations. I just call it very generic because you may have additional or less part in your network diagram, but more or less, we have internet in front, then we have an external and internal firewall, a DMZ in between when we place our public face application, and then we have the internal network and the beautiful Wi-Fi there, which is not supposed to be there. And so within this diagram, we have a different level of entry points. I call it common entry points. By the common entry points, I don't mean that this is the only way that the attackers attacked you. No, they are simply common. So the attacks may target your IDS, IPS WAF to generate, for example, some noise to make them generate false positive. Definitely your public face application would be one of the first layer of the attack for the attackers. Then we have the internal network, and we have Wi-Fi, we have the BYOD issue, and especially the endpoint at the moment. So endpoint security is always important. However, it's become more to the attention during this pandemic because the number of the work from home has raised dramatically, and everyone is working from home and using their own personal device and endpoint, and it makes a lot of security concern. So when we have a common entry points, we have the common investigation points as well. So we can investigate the logs from IDS, IPS, we can do logs from the endpoint, but we should not focus only on the logs. In general, we should divide our source of data in the two main categories: network-based data and host-based data. In the network-based data, we can have the log from the network devices. We can have the network packet or network flow. It depends on how we collect those in our environment. On the other hand, we have a host-based data, which normally we focus only on the event log, for example, in case of the Windows, or the log in the host level. But it's not all about the logs. What about the hard disk? What about the memory? These are a very important source of data to be analyzed. So in this webinar, we will come up with the other webinars definitely for the log analysis, for the hard disk analysis, but in this webinar, we focus on the memory. If you want to know why we emphasize on the memory, because it's a potential source of valuable intelligence, and main importantly, is faster to acquire and analyze in comparison with the hard disk. Let's say if you have a server, how many terabytes of the hard disk you have to acquire, and then you have to analyze. But definitely the amount of the RAM would be much lesser than that. And the value of information is amazing. I just put a few of the sample of the information for you here. Definitely the running processes and their hierarchy, the DLLs and the handles, the dynamic link libraries, or any other dependencies when we talk about Linux. The executed commands, these commands could be executed by the attacker or could be executed by network admin or any other internal attack in case of the physical access to your endpoint or to your server. Code injection and the malwares, in case some malwares walk into your environment and then inject some code in the system DLLs or the system process to have more stable connections. So network connection, registry data in case of the Windows OS, browsing history, and users and passwords. So just imagine all of this information can be obtained from the memory, while we have to deal with the less amount of the capacity, and we can make the memory image much faster compared to the imaging of the terabytes of the hard disk. Memory acquisition, I love to call it put an ocean in a cup, because we really have an ocean in the cup in terms of the information that we have in just a sample 1 gig, 2 gig, 4 gig, 8 gig, or maximum 64 gig, or when we deal with the servers, definitely we have more, but still less compared to the hard disk. So memory acquisition is referred to the process of storing a volatile content of the memory into a non-volatile storage. So the sad part is that in order to do that, we need administrator level privilege, but the happy point is that in the threat hunting, we don't have headache. That's the headache when we do the digital forensics, because in most of the times, the victim machine or the server could be turned off. So we cannot just simply turn it on and then go for memory acquisition, because it may trigger some bad actors there. Or it could be just with the normal user admin, if it's turned on and it's logged in, and if we don't have the administrator privilege access, we have difficulties to dump the memory. But in the threat hunting, we normally do it for our own company, on our own assets. So, and everyone aware of that is a proactive, and we can get assistance from our network admin to run our tools with the administrator privilege. So it would be easy. So there are different techniques to acquire the memory for the Windows, Mac, and Linux. So in this 1.5 hour workshop, our main focus will be on the Windows. So, however, in our face-to-face workshop and training, we go in details on how to get the memory acquisitions for the Windows, Mac, Linux, and even mobile devices. There are many tools and frameworks that provide us the capability to dump the memory. So I just choose a top 3 that I personally love to work with them, but it doesn't mean that I want to say that these are the best or only use these, or we are not going to whitelist any tools. Is simply I'm more handy with these tools and I use them for quite some time. So the magnet RAM capture, Belkacov RAM capture, and access data FTK imager. The good news is that all of them are free for the imaging. We no need to pay. All of them are free tools. These 3 are available for the Windows. So the magnet forensic is a very tiny application with a very small memory footprint. Why is important to have a small memory footprint? So whenever we execute something in the machine, it writes something on the memory. It may modify something, may add something, and may rewrite some content. That's why when I want to use my tools, I should make sure that that tools is not that heavy to rewrite the important content resides in the memory. Later, I may face the issue when I want to retrieve this data. So that's why one of the main criteria to choose a memory imaging tools is to make sure that tools is very small and tiny. So Belkacov is another small application with the capability to bypass the anti-debugging and anti-dumping system. We may have some issues in our computer, or we may have the anti-dumping system installed on our computer, on that features is set. So Belkacov claimed that they can bypass that one. However, again, in terms of the threat hunting, we may not face that issue because everyone aware that what we are doing, and we hopefully have the collaboration from the IT admins. Those who are in cybersecurity may know what I mean. And my preferred tools, which is access data. So the only difference between the access data and there is 2 big difference between the access data and the other 2 tools. The other 2 tools no need any installation. They are just executable, standalone, ready to go. However, the access data, not a light version, I mean the main version, may need to be installed. The very important point here is that do not install these tools on victim machine or on the machine that we are willing to do the memory capture. Again, why? To minimize the changes on the machine. The best thing is that just install these tools in your computer and then copy and paste folder in the pen drive and attach the pen drive to your target machine and run it and dump the information. Another reason that I love the access data FTK imager, as you can see in my presentation, it can easily include a page file for you. So means at the same time, I can dump the memory and I can dump the page file. So if you are not aware that what is the page files, you may read in advance later, but in short, the page file is a file created and used by Windows to manage the memory usage. Sometimes when we have a huge application or huge information running in the computer and we have a short of the memory, the Windows operating system use a page file as a part of memory to handle that big files. That's why the amount of the information resides in the page file is also important. I will give you a very short example later in the practical side to see how we can deal with the page file. So for today's webinar, I use the Access Data FTK imager and I dump my memory and I dump at the same time the page file. Then the art of memory forensics. I don't want to say is started with the volatility frameworks, but volatility framework, one of the leaders in the domain of the memory analysis. There are a lot of another amazing frameworks there that we may have another webinar on that to compare or to use both of them at the same time. But for this webinar, I rather focus on the volatility frameworks, and there is a reason behind that. The volatility framework is a single framework, it's open source, again free, and it's cross-platform. You can easily run it in your Mac, on your Windows, and on your Linux. It has extensible API that can be easily merged in for your development team. It has a very good file format coverage, and the best things, it has unparalleled feature sets. Means in order to run a different command, there is a minimum dependency amongst them. We can easily run them regardless of the order. So if you want to get more information about volatility, you can go to the GitHub repository, or you can go for the Volatility Foundation website to get more details. So if I want to just discuss in brief about the command references, in the GitHub, you can find the Volatility Foundation and the command references where the list of all the commands are there. But in general, they come with the 9 categories, the image identification, we will discuss about that later, the process and the DLS, the process memory, kernel memory and objects, registry, and so on. So volatility is very easy to use. It really makes memory forensics easy. We just need to install it download it in our Windows or install it in our Linux. We go for the volatility, the name of the tools, -F. We provide the image name, the memory image that we created earlier, command that we want, followed by the profile. So if you have any question till this point, feel free to type it. My colleague there collect the questions, and then we will get back to you at the end of the session.
Eslay, would you be able to share this respective presentation once, please, as well?
Yes. We share the video and we share the presentation slides with you. Okay. No worries.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome. So good. I didn't know that this session would be interactive. It's impressive. Anyone else has any question so far? I like it. It's nice to be more interactive.
This is a challenge with online or whatever type of calls. So.
Okay, amazing. So let's continue.
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay, I go for. So previously, I have already done my memory and put it here in the folder. So let's do this one first, that we're going to get it together later. So I have my EGS.mem, which is the dump of the memory with the access data, and my page file here. So I have my volatility also installed here. Is the latest one, which is the
Hello.
2.6.
काम
So-
नाही करत आहे की एक सायबर सिक्युरिटीचा मी वेबिनारला जॉईन झालो होतो ते 10 वाजता सुरू झालं होतं.
So it would be appreciated if everyone put themselves in the mute, then we don't have any interruption. Thank you very much. So by checking volatility info, I can see the information about my framework. So we can have the list of the commands that we can run here and the list of the profiles that support by this version of the volatility. So just to make sure what is this profile, these are the profiles that gonna tell the volatility which operating system we are dealing with and how it can you look for the data. So when we do the threat hunting, again, we don't have that issue because we know which operating system we are dealing with. But in terms of forensic investigation, when you receive the memory image, especially from your first responder or from another team, you may not fully aware that what exactly you dealing with. That's why the best things to start is to find the image info. I just go for the volatility -F. Oh, sorry. I'm not in the image info. Use the kernel debug scan to go in depth, to go in detail of the memory and find what is the exact profile that match with your memory. Simply means that what was the operating system of the machine that you already took the memory from. Okay, here we go. We have a few suggested profile here. So you can see is a little bit vary. We have a different profile from Windows 7 to Windows 2008 to Windows 2008 with the different service packs. So not a surprise because a different operating, the version of the Windows operating system may have almost similar memory structure. That's why volatility may detect them as a similar. So based on my experience, most of the time, the first suggested profile is the correct one. So if in case it's not working, we can always go to the second one, which is similar to the first with the additional number. Okay, now we have our profile. The profile is Windows 7 Service Pack 1 and is 64-bit. Okay, how to start now? There are a lot of approaches that may be taken by a different threat hunters, but normally, personally, I start with the three things: process, network connections, and users. Because I want to know what are the processes running on the machine, is there any active connections, and who are the users user account, I mean, exist there. Let's start with the processes. Volatility, investigate, my image. No, I have to give the profile. Considering the profile, which we find it earlier, and PS list means find the process list. If you wonder how do you know that the PS list is for this, you can always refer to the volatility command reference in the GitHub. It may take a few seconds. Okay, here we go. So now we have a list of the processes. These are referred to the process which were running at the time we acquire the memory. So it comes with the offset of the process in the memory. We have the name of the process. We have the process ID and process parent ID, which plays an important role in our investigation. We have the threads and handles, and we have another factor. This is very important here also, is the time that the process starts and the time that the process ends. And we have WOW64, which stands for the Windows on Windows. It's referred as a Windows 32 on Windows 64. These are a 32-bit application which is running in our 64 operating system. So let's have a look on what we can find here. Before we start, let me discuss a little bit in detail about the PID and PPID and why it's important. So the process ID is the ID allocated to any process which is running in the Windows operating system, and the PPID refers to their parents. So the first level of analysis is to have a benchmark of the standard process in our operating system along with their parents. For example, here we have the svhost. Svhost is one of the systemic processes. So as you can see, it has a parent ID, it's an ID of 724 and the parent ID of 508. If I want to check who is the parent, I can go to the list and look for any process with the PID of 508, which in this case is services. So the SVC host is a child of services, pretty normal. This is the standard of the Windows operating system. How do I know about these standards? So there is a bunch of information available on the internet as a benchmarking, or you can set up your own clean machine to create your own benchmarking, or you can have a close communication with the community, with the experts. So normally, whenever we find something, but we are not sure what would be, we search for the information, we refer to our experience, or we discuss with the expert. So I have a lot of SVC hosts here that all of them connected to the, all of them are the child of the services. So let's have a brief look at the glance on the data to see what I can see. Okay, system, we have all, there is a term among the digital forensic investigators that says always go for the whatever process start with the S, like the svhost, like a service. They may be the source of the threat. Okay. So, surprisingly, I have another SVC host.exe here, which is not a child of service. It is a child of process 238. Let's check who is the 238. sorry. So here we go. It's a little bit suspicious here because the SVC host by standard should be a child of the services. But here we have the SVC host, which is a child of another SVC host. Okay, in the next level, let me check who is the parent of this SVC host. So this time I go to grep for, sorry, both of them, 2308 and 952. Let's see what would be the result. Okay, here we go. As you can see, the 952 is a process ID for the Explorer. So here I have the SVC host, which is the child of another SVC host, which is a child of Explorer. So surprisingly, here when I look for the SVC host, I find another process, which is MS update, is a child of the Explorer as well. So it's not look familiar for me. So we may need to focus more on this MS update as well. So this MS update, again, 952. Okay. As you can see, this is a very effective to look for the hierarchy of the information, the processes. But if I want to go manually one by one, it would be hassle. So let's make it visualize, because I have another suspicious processes on the top. For example, here, what would be a process with the name of the TMP? And why the TMP start and end so fast? Is just for few seconds. And surprisingly, I have a CMD which is run within a few seconds as well. So if I want to go one by one and find who is the parent, who is the child, it takes time. Instead, we can make it more visualized. I'm gonna to use another amazing command, PS3. So PS3 give me the hierarchy of the processes. No dot means the parent, one dot means a single level of child, and the two dot means a third level child. So if I come here, you can see, okay, here we go. We have a more interesting information here. I have the MSIFD temp, which is a parent of the notepad, which is totally awkward. And the notepad is a parent of 2 CMD. So definitely I can consider this one as a suspicious pattern. I don't call it malicious yet, which is it is, but I just call it suspicious. So again, I'm gonna to teach you another visualization technique which help us to have more better visibility. So in order to do that, instead of asking the volatility to just give me the result in the console, I'm gonna to use output as a dot file, and I will have the output file as a EGS dot. So I'm technically asked. Okay, let me check. Output dot output, sorry, dash file. So here we go. Instead of asking volatility to simply show me the code in the console, I asked to put it on the file with the file format of the dot. If we do the cat on the EGS dot, so we can see this information. So if you think this is the better visualization, we are not yet at the point. So I just open a website for you, which is help me to visualize the dot files. I just need to copy and paste the file here. I'm pasting it here. Generate the graph. Here we go. Now we have a better visualization of all of the processes. However, let me change the style, but by removing this, generate the graph. So my browser is not happy. Okay. Now here I have the better visualization for the process. Those who are in the incident response, digital forensic, and threat hunting are fully aware of the importance of visualization. Is a key. Visualization, visualization, and visualization, because we are dealing with the huge volume of the data. Excuse me. And visualization help us to catch the malicious thing super fast. For example, here, right in front of us, I have the Explorer, which is our malicious SVC host, and SVC host generates another SVC host. So at the moment, I consider all of these three as a suspicious. Here I have MS update here as well, which is run another CMD. So let's look for another things. As you can see, it's very extensive module. Okay, here we go. This is another thing that we identified in the PS3. I have the process name temp and have the notepad, and the notepad open CMD. So one of the challenge as a threat hunter, you remember when we talked about the pattern of the attacks, we should know the attacks. To catch a thief, we should think like a thief. That's why I only suggest my teammates to do not stick on the forensic and threat hunting knowledge sharing only. Go for the penetration testing and ethical hacking as well, because when you want to find the hacking pattern, you should know about the style of the hacker. For example, I'm not sure yet, but to me, this is a pattern of migration. So the attacker could have access to your computer via malicious software, and then it migrate from here to the notepad, and via the notepad open the console. So definitely, if you work with the Metasploit or any other migration techniques, you may be aware of these. That's why again and again, please, if you want to be a good threat hunter, try to be a good hacker as well. That's why in my team in the EGS, the good thing is that we have a very fair balance of the expertise. We are not only focused on one domain. We are take care of the both red teaming and blue teaming, ethical hacking, threat hunting, and digital forensic at the same time. We learn how to hack, and then we learn how to detect. So at the moment, I still tag them as a suspicious. So what next? In the next step, I want to know, are they malware or not? There is a built-in plugin for the volatility named mal find. So just let's review the process again. I dump my images, I install my volatility, I identify the image profile, then I go for three things at first. Why these three things? Because based on my experience, this is the good point to start. Processes, network connections, and the users. At the moment, we are still stuck with the process. If you have the better approach, I would be more than happy if you share with us, because the world of cybersecurity is all about sharing and exchanging the information. So with the process in the process list, I find a few suspicious processes. I visualize and I find, yes, confirm three set of processes, which is SVC host, MS update, and MSIFD.tmp, which open the notepad. It's suspicious. So in this round, I'm gonna try the mal find, which is the built-in plugin of the volatility, to find is there any malware. Let's run it and see what we can find. So here we go. It says there is some malicious pattern with the Explorer, and yes, as we suspected, confirm the MS update is one of the malicious, or it could be a potential malware, the notepad, which is open by MSIFT. Okay, I close that. I want to refer back and show you. So all the instances of the notepad and MS Update are malware. But surprisingly, I can't see the SVC host. Means it's not detected as a malware by malfind. So what would be the issue? It could be it's not a malware, which to me it's less chance because it shows a very significant suspicious pattern, or our malfind signature are not able to detect it, because as we discussed earlier, there are a lot of techniques that used and employed by the hackers to hide their activities. So apart from the malfind, I have another techniques. I can use the proc dump to dump that process, and then for further analysis. Okay, if you remember, let me run it again for you, the PS list. The SV host process ID it's 3152. Let's try to dump it if I can successfully dump. Use volatility -P, which is specifically focused on the certain process instead of all. 3152 proc dump -D, which is downloading into current folder. So here we go. I just dump the information, the process here. You can see the process. So let me open my virus total. I'm gonna submit the downloaded one here. Undetected. No wonder why the malfind plugin also was not able to detect this malware. So as you can see, clean sheet means no antivirus detect it as a malware, considering the point that it has suspicious activities. This is the point. This is all the point about the trend hunting. Now we're going to the main point, proactive and reactive. If we rely on the tools, definitely the tools can detect the MS update for you, because the MS update is malicious and easy to detect, is known signature. But SVC host is a malware that generated by my team. We normally use this kind of the malwares in our red teaming experience to see how effectively we can bypass the security control of the clients and how effectively they updating and the signature of the security solution. So as you can see, the virus that we created is cannot be detected by any of the security vendors. here is because it has a very simple and encrypted mechanism. Okay. So this is the beauty of the threat hunting. We're gonna to analyze the unknown bad. So in this case, we found let me close this tab. We found a process which is not detected by the antivirus, but it shows some malicious, suspicious behaviors. So I go more in depth now. I check the PS list again. Now what I'm gonna try to do, I set -P, specifically focus on 31.5.2, which is the SV host, and I look for the DLL list. The dynamic link library, or DLL, is a mechanism in the Windows that used as a resource or as a for the saving the codes or to another extra sources for the executable files. And the DLL injection is one of the famous attacks, and we have a lot of malicious activities associated with the DLLs. I want to know what are the DLLs associated to that process, the SVC host. Okay, we can see there are a lot of DLLs there. So for the DLLs also, we have to go through all of them one by one and to analyze them to see if they are malicious. So one thing that, okay, this is a very interesting thing that I find here. I can see the C user Meisam application data local temp. There is a DLL there, which is associated with the SVC host. Guess what would be is that? So I assume that that particular process is located in a temp. Is the temp folder in my Meisam user account is a normal place for the SVC host process? Definitely not. So we actually come with the hypothesis no, and slowly we fix the puzzle. We solve this puzzle. At the moment, we know it has a very suspicious and odd parent ID. It has the, and it's located in the temp folder. So another things, let me check. They just inform me that we may need to rejoin. I think I'm already there. So anyone there can clearly hear me?
I can still hear you.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, I
great.
can
Yes,
still
we
hear
can
you as well.
Okay,
still
great,
see
because I
and
see
hear
some
you.
feedbacks that may not audible. Okay, happy. Let's continue. So what else support a DLL list? Okay, we go for the handles. Just to double confirm with you guys, you can see my screen as well, right?
Yes, Meisam.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So then I think it's the issue with my own team, because my own team claim they cannot see and they worry there may be interruption. Okay, here we go. So what is the handles? Whenever a process try to access to the file, it creates the handle. It's a very short form. So apart from the DLL that I analyze for that specific process, I ask Volatility to find the handles for that particular process. again, I can see the temporary folder here. It's confirmed that the SVC host is located in temporary folder. So what would be the next? I can easily ask the digital forensic investigators to go and conduct the forensic investigator on that machine, look for the process name SVC host located in the temp. This is how we claim that proactive threat hunting minimize the time of the investigations. So we have another few things to go. I go for get SIDs. So for those who may not know what is the get SIDs, SIDs is a security identifier for the process. Intention of running this is to identify any process which may have a maliciously escalated privilege, because the privilege escalation is one of the techniques used by the hackers. So of course, if I eliminate this one, we can get all the get SIDs, all the SIDs for all of the processes. But make sure for the threat hunting, we should stay focused. When we find something, we focus on that particular things only. So here I have all the security identifier for our SVC host process. And here we go. We have the administrator here. It's part of the administrators. It has the NTLM authentication privilege. To me, these are all the red flags. To be sure, let's check the privilege as well. Prives, which show me all the privileges that this process has. So at the moment, we have a different attribute. It could be present. It could be by default is a privilege of that process. Let me put it in this way. It's very important because some privilege are by default belong to that process. And some privilege are enabled for that process. When a privilege enabled, we should be more focused on that because this privilege is not supposed to belong to that process and it's somehow enabled. So because this is the sophisticated malware that created by us, you cannot see that much privilege. If I want to go for the process ID of 3500, which is MS update, just to show you the example of the bad privilege, you can see here, force shutdown from the remote. We have the access credential manager as a trusted color. Why a process should have the access to the credential manager? So these are how we can look for any malicious privilege that given to the process. So far, I'm done with the processes. Remember, process, networks, and users, because I have enough evidences at the moment to prove that a threat exists and we proactively find them. Now let's move forward and check the network connection, because network connection comes right after the process. Because most of the malwares at the moment communicate with somebody somewhere in the world or something to send the commands to their masters, to receive the commands, or to technically steal your information or upload somewhere. In order to get those information, I just easily ask Volatility for a net scan. Let me clear it first, then it would be more visible. Net scan. So here we go. We have all the list of active network communications, network connections at the time that we collected the memory dump. So let's make it more readable. I'm not interested on at the UDP at the moment. I just said grep for me only TCP version 4. So here we go. We have all the TCP version 4 right here, just to play with the grep command to see how we can narrow down the information to specifically focus on what we want. For example, I have a lot of 0000, which I'm not interested on. So I'm gonna use another grep on top of that to only eliminate the 0 entries. Here we go. So I have a few network connections. So that one, you can see the sender port. If I go up, you can see what information we can see is a protocol, local address, foreign address, state, and the owner, means which process create that network connection. This is a very amazing thing. Even in the live analysis, which I plan another webinar for that, which is system live analysis, we go how we can correlate between the process list and with the net state, network connection status, to find which process create that network connection. But here we have a surprise, because, for example, here I see something malicious. I have a file. It could be malicious, or it could be just a normal web browsing, because the port is 18. So I would like to see who generate that file. But here we go. The process ID is -1. Means at the moment in this image, we are not able to see which process generate this, create these network connections. So to me, if it's a normal browsing, we could have easily seen that. So what to do? Let's use a technique that help us with the help of the Yara scan. I use instead of the net scan, I say Yara scan. Find me the pattern 45 95 168 98. I said, look in this memory image, look for that pattern. Let's see what we can get. It may take a little bit time. So it took a little bit more than what we expected. But this is all about the forensic and threat hunting. We should be a little bit patient to see how much longer we should wait. Okay, here we go. So Yara is a plugin for the volatility that help us to look for the pattern. So here simply I ask volatility to use the Yara scan and look for this pattern, and we can find it here right in front of us. And here we go. The SV
Meisam,
has.
your screen
Yes.
is not changing.
The screen is not okay. Let me off my screen and on it again.
Okay.
Okay, have you seen it? Okay,
Yes.
great.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so we have the IP address here, and it's confirmed from the process with the PID 3152. As you notice here with the technique, I cannot find it here, but I can find with the Yara scan. So let's put another puzzle on our main frame. I have a SVC host. It has a suspicious parent ID, and now it makes network connection and use port 80. Port 80 is one of the techniques that the malicious application use to hide their activity amongst the normal users. So now I have enough evidence to prove that the SVC host is the malicious one. For the other two, it was easy because our malfind easily detect them as a malicious, and they have some pattern of the privilege escalation as well. Let's go for one of my final comment, which is the users. I'm not surprised if I can see many users in this computer because it's already compromised. So the hash dump gives us a very detailed information about the user. So I have the administrator here. I have a guest. It should be disabled at first place. I have my own account, which is Meisam at EGS Lab. And I have another 4 users here. These users could be created by the hacker, could be created by the admin. This is the beauty of the threat hunting. The moment we find the hash dumps and the list of the users, we should always go back to the person in charge and ask for clarification. Is there something which is supposed to be in that endpoint, or it's something created without our knowledge? Of course, if it's created without our knowledge, this is a trigger. But at the moment, in the memory level, I cannot confirm which of those process or hacker create this user. This is need more in-depth when we do the digital forensics. However, in order to get a better picture, I can go for the commands, because normally the hackers use the shell and reverse shell, and when the shell they get the command access, they trigger the command to run the malicious command, or for example to create a user. So let me check if I can find anything in the CMD scan. It gives all the list of the commands which is executed in your machine CMD. So again, I cannot find a pattern for who create those user, but I can see the SVC host here again. So what does it mean? Means the SVC host command executed in the CMD. It could be a shell access. It's located in the temp, and it's called by using a command line in the CMD. This is another IOC and IOA. Let me check if I can find anything more interesting in the consoles. The consoles is application consoles that they're running, so nothing much in this scenario rather than the SVC host. So just before we end the session, I would like to check my browsing history as well, i.e. history. So there is another plugin for Firefox history and for the Chrome history. The reason I look for them, because I have 3 malicious processes, and I want to know if they are downloaded by the user or via the browsing some websites. Let's check here, i.e. history, give us the information about all the browsing activity using Internet Explorer. Again, we have the external plugins. This one is a built-in plugin. For the external plugin, you should use Chrome history or Firefox history. Just let's give it some time to see what would be the result. Again, it may take some time because we are dealing with some quite number of information. So please write to us if you want we will provide you the slide deck, we'll provide you the video recording and also the comments. Write for us if you need any other information. Okay, here we go, nothing. That's another beauty of threat hunting. Guys, in the threat hunting, we are not necessarily have to find something. We look proactively for the information. Either we find something malicious or we don't find. If we don't find, still we have a success to fine-tune our technology to understand better our environment. So the IE history plugin, for whatever reason, could not retrieve any information from my browsing, but we don't give up. I want to share you another technique. First, I use the PS list and looking for IE Explorer. Okay, I have 4 IE Explorer. So I choose with the first one. I use Yara scan again. Remember, the Yara scan help us to search for the pattern. Yara scan -y. Simply look for HTTP. In which process? In process 16448, which is the first explorer. I should go through for all of them. I just simply start with the first one. Let me run to see what we can find. Right? Yara scan, thanks for highlight from my teammate. I always have the problem with the typing. Okay, here we go. Oh my God, it's too much. So I have to interrupt it and go for less. Here we go. What we can see here, I still have no idea how we get the SVC host, but I solve another puzzle. The MS update is downloaded via the URL 192.168.2.5. As long as I see IP there, not URL, is the obvious pattern of malicious activity. So the last technique, even if we are not able to use this information here with the browser or with the Yara scan, remember, I asked you to use the access data because we can have a page file here. I just gonna to use the string command of the Linux. Is a very simple analysis of the page file. Like Yara scan, the strings help me to grab for all the HTTPS. I make it HTTP to find it in the page file. Okay, here we go. Right here, I have the signature of downloading a malicious application via the IP-based URL. So you can see I can find a lot of the browsing history here in the page file. So if I want to go more specifically, I can search for the HTTPS as well. Here I can get more on the HTTPS side as well. And as you can see, unlike the IE history, this one helps us to get all the browsing history of our client, which is resides in the memory. So I have enough information at the moment to go to the network admin and ask him for the help and escalate it to the digital forensic investigator that I have the 3 process, and 2 of them are detected as a malware. 1 of them is not detected as a malware, but is highly suspicious because it resides in the temp folder and it make a network connection to the port 80, and it has a name very similar, not similar, the exact similar to the system operating system operating system process, but it's not with a valid parent. So now I put all this information in my report and escalate it to the digital forensic investigators to go and dig more, because I want to know what is the source of that SVC host, how it get access to my machines. At this moment, with the amount of the information I have from the memory, is not possible to tell that. Okay, let me go back to my slides. Hope you're enjoying it so far. Now we are open to question and answers. If anyone has any question. So is there any question there?
Meisam, this is Chan.
Yeah, Chan.
Just wondering. Yeah, threat hunting is pretty interesting. He actually give the initial sign whether there's any breach on a particular machines.
Mm-hmm.
But from the organization's point of view, where would we start? Is it through pen test, through the white hackings, then only be able to find this, or is just when something triggers, then only we go into this?
Okay, thank you very much. It's a very good question. Actually, the threat hunting is a separate service line by itself. It could be a part of our SOC. It could be a part of our penetration testing. For example, when we do a intelligence-led penetration testing. But I would rather consider it as an individual service line, which can proactively work individually and also help the other teams when it's needed. I think you should prepare some, make some capabilities in your team, at least 1 or 2, who know how to look for the threats, because as we discussed earlier, the threat hunting is something beyond just setting up the tools, feed the data, and waiting for the alerts. If we want to wait something happen, and then we go and investigate, is more reactive and is more to the digital investigation rather than the threat hunting. And it could be late, because when something trigger means somebody already back into our system. I highly suggested to have the dedicated, if you don't have the dedicated team because of the budget issue or whatever it is, maybe you can send one of your teams to read more or attend the certification program on the threat intelligence and threat hunting.
Okay, it's more like a random attempt something like doing a pen test every quarterly. We just take 1 or 2 machines and we just go through those machines, see whether is it being breached or not.
Exactly. My point is that we should have our asset list, and we select those critical ones, like the critical servers. And from the endpoints, I understand we may have a lot of endpoints in our system, in our company. We can go and select a few sampling. However, these are complement each other. Still, I believe we have another source for the threat intel, not only the memory. We have our SIM, we may have our IDS, IPS, firewall, anyone trigger anything. We may focus more on those systems which is shown in the logs to go more in depth with the memory and hard disk and so on. So I have another question here. How best to plan career if you are to consider threat hunting career? So to me, the threat hunting is one of the things that is going to be on demand at the moment, is in the high demand as well. But it's better to merge with the other techniques. For example, you should learn the threat hunting, threat intelligence, plus digital forensic and incident response, or plus penetration testing, to drive the intel-led penetration testing by collecting the threats. But individually threat hunting as well, it could be a good for the future career. So I cannot see any other question. Any other question there? You can either type it or just voice it out. I would be more than happy. Yeah.
I do have one question. It
Please.
would appear to me that based on the information that you've given us, this would also work extremely well as a baselining proposition. So in other words, understanding what your endpoint systems actually look like so that you can quickly compare them against a scenario where you think you've been compromised.
Exactly. Thanks for highlighting this. As if you remember, at earlier stage of my presentation, I discussed about how we know this process parent ID and the PIDs are normal. One of the things is the benchmarking. We can have the we can do this investigation in the clean sheet system to find the benchmark, or we can do it in our system in case we find something or we find our benchmark. We tune our benchmark. That's why it's a very important thing, because in most of the case, people expect us to find something. We find something if something is there. So the point is that, as you greatly highlight, this technique can be used to create a benchmark of the normal behavior of our current assets in the environment, and then we can use that for the future investigation.
One other question. The
Yes, please.
process that you showed us was on Windows. You mentioned that this also works on Linux. I'm assuming that mobile collection, which you talked about, also is based on the fact that most mobile is based off Linux anyway.
Yes.
Okay, so it would work the same way.
Yes, actually, for the memory image for this webinar taken from Windows, because most of the endpoints at the moment are using the Windows, but in our face-to-face classes, or maybe I could think about the future workshops that we discuss about how to analyze the memory taken from the Linux as well. But the point is that the Volatility Framework supports all the operating systems. So any other question? If no, thanks a lot for joining this session. Please feel free to visit our website, egs.ecouncil.org, or OFISH for our service line. And feel free to drop me email if any further question or any communication or any knowledge sharing is there. And please feel free to add me in my LinkedIn. You can easily find me by my name, Meisam Eslahi. I would be more than happy to connect and share more information. So have a very wonderful afternoon, everyone. See you soon.
Thank you,
Thank you
Meisam.
very much.
Thank you.